This season, the National's been taking stock of a country at the crossroads of an election year. Who are we as a nation? And what's our future course? Canada is not the same place it was a generation ago. We're living longer, differently, but not necessarily better. It could be because of where the majority of Canadians reside. So tonight, in this installment of Our Canada, we're asking, do our cities still work? Here's the CBC's Chris Brown.
Decades ago, Canadians designed their cities, and they made them for cars.
Every night, the exodus takes place on the brand new expressways as tens of thousands of Torontonians flee towards the outer rim of the city.
The year is 1950, and this dad is living the dream with a big detached home in the suburbs and a new car to drive everywhere. The dream was created by city planners who figured this was perfect. Now we know, along the way, we took a wrong turn.
When you design a city for cars, it fails for everyone, including drivers. We have built cities that are tremendously inefficient. We're talking about our lives.
The ways in which we've been designing our cities have been making us sick.
Fortunately, it's not too late to fix the mistakes. The narrative now for Canada's cities is, how do we redesign them so that they work better for people? And increasingly, the most innovative solutions are coming from what at first glance might seem to be the most unlikely places. Cities, at their essence, are a system to connect people with each other, to the places they work or go to school, the places they shop, and where they socialize. Living too close together can be annoying, but living too far apart creates even bigger problems. Author Charles Montgomery argues that sprawling out is ruining our lives.
What strikes me about this particular street is it's a great example of how our aspirations for happiness have maybe led us into systems that make us less happy on the whole. And they're invisible to most people.
On this day, he's brought me to a typical Canadian suburb, about an hour outside of Vancouver.
This neighborhood is actually likely to make your kids fatter, sicker, and it will take, if they live here their whole lives, maybe 4 years off their life. Why? Because you can't walk to anything. There aren't even any sidewalks here. Here someone is again, off driving, where? To the grocery store? We don't know, but she'll spend a lot of today in her car.
Montgomery says the big draw of a place like this is living in a detached home. They tend to be cheaper in the suburbs, and yet the lower sticker price hides other costs of living here. Roads aren't free either. If drivers were actually charged a toll to reflect the real cost of commuting, then living on the fringe might not seem so economical.
Canadian cities massively subsidize private automobile use, massively. It costs something like 30 times as much to support a 1 kilometer journey in a car as it does as the same journey on foot or on a bike.
The financial argument against more cars and driving is overshadowed, though, by the harsh toll our spread-out lifestyle is taking on our health. Dr. Karen Lee is a Canadian who now advises the city of New York on health issues. Lee is a public health doctor. We've caught up with her on a trip to Toronto.
Well, we're at a bike share program station. What's great about this is it's providing an amenity, bicycles, for people to use as a transportation option.
An option other than the car.
Because the environments in which we live have actually been described as obesogenic environments. Obesogenic meaning you just live in them and you'll gain weight, right? And that's because it's so difficult now. We've inadvertently designed physical activity out of our lives. Rates of childhood obesity have tripled in the last 3 decades. Adult obesity has doubled.
Lee worked for a time at the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. She says it transformed her perception of how to tackle the chronic, long-term diseases that are responsible for a huge percentage of what governments spend on healthcare.
In the 19th century and early 20th centuries, our leading causes of death were infectious diseases, diseases like cholera, like tuberculosis. And the way that we actually defeated those diseases was through city design. We created sanitation infrastructure, clean water systems. Today, we've got a different set of diseases. The way that we need to actually now think about defeating those diseases is actually analogous to our past.
She's talking about the urgent need for another public health revolution, one that re-engineers our cities to put physical activity back into the process of getting around.
Men who climbed on average 20 to 34 floors of stairs per week, that's only about 3 to 5 floors a day, they had a nearly 29% reduction in their risk of stroke.
The more obvious dangers of taking a lot of car trips can't be ignored either. The degree of urban sprawl is directly related to traffic and pedestrian fatalities. The task of redesigning communities that have been in place for decades is daunting. And yet, around the world, progressive cities are doing it. The problems may not always be identical, yet planners, designers, and communities are borrowing ideas from each other to make their neighborhoods, their public transit, and public spaces better. And Canadians can learn from it. For that, we hooked up with Brent Toderian. Toderian used to be Vancouver's chief planner, and he worked in Calgary too. He's now an international advisor who visits innovative cities around the world and tweets out the things he sees that makes them better.
It's North American cities and Australian cities and European cities that are now coming to study what Latin America has been doing.
He's brought us to Medellin, Colombia, where he's helping that city improve its public spaces.
Well, Medellin has become a model for urban creativity. And maybe it's because that they're poor or that their problems of urban violence seem so insurmountable, but they've had to be creative, and they've had to be creative fast.
In the 1990s, it was hard to think of a worse place to live. The notorious drug lord Pablo Escobar waged a bloody guerrilla war. A mind-boggling 6,000 people were murdered here every year. Escobar was killed in a shootout with police, but that didn't heal the shattered neighborhoods. That would require a determined community effort to reimagine what people wanted Medellin to be.
Well, right off the bat, you notice how much of a hub it is. There's a lot of activity going on here. There's music, there's people, there's kids.
We're in Comuna 13, Community 13, a poverty-stricken place, but at first glance, not recognizable as such. The street art on the walls of homes and even roofs is incredible. And instead of dirty paths leading up the steep hillsides, there are outdoor escalators. Architect Carlos Escobar is showing us around.
The new transportation system in Medellin has this important part. It's not only a physical solution, it's not only transportation, it's also a social instrument that involves the community, that integrates the community in whole the city.
Marginalized on the mountainside, the escalators instantly made it easier for people to get to jobs in the rest of the city.
This is like an extension of the transit system, effectively.
It's part of the transit system.
And it's connected with the metro system, and obviously it's connected with all the city.
It wasn't easy to connect the ability to walk with the ability to access the city through public transport, but something as simple as escalators was rather brilliant.
Perhaps most astonishing is how much this social transformation cost. A mere $6 million. Peanuts in the scheme of modern infrastructure projects.
It's important not to think of the escalators just as mobility, just as transportation. This is community building. This is civic amenity. Each landing point has a public space, and it's very important to remember that just 15 years ago, Medellin people didn't come out to public spaces because they were afraid to. And so the city has invested a great deal of creativity and investment into creating public spaces that are linked with mobility, that the people have re-embraced and taken back and taken control of, which is a real, it's a triumph of the people that they've taken back their city.
Hola.
Hola.
Mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto.
Up at the top of the escalator system, we visited Danielle. She lives here with her 2 little kids, as well as her mother.
Todo fue un proceso, entré ahí, estaba en embarazo de mi primera bebé.
When people used to hear of Comuna 13, it was like the worst place on earth, she told me. Now there's a sense of unity between people who live here, even with the police. People take pride in the escalators and work to keep them clean.
This shows that you can't underestimate how much of a transformation you can have in just 10 years. It's powerful stuff, and it's certainly been successful here, and it would be a big mistake for Canadian cities to think, well, this is Medellin, it's different. It's not that different.
And the escalators are just part of the remarkable ingenuity here. One of the things that planners here realized early on was the need to find a way to make it just as easy for poor people to move around and get to their jobs as richer people. Now, building a light rail system, which they did, was very expensive to put it everywhere, so they reimagined some old technology to a new purpose. In this case, it was a ski gondola.
And it'll seem a bit strange to get on them without our skis with us, but this is...
At this Medellin metro station, you can hop off a bus or a train and head up the mountain. What should we take away from this in Canada, what we're seeing, what we're experiencing here with us?
Well, so many things. In a broad sense, it's about repurposing technologies that are used elsewhere and realizing they can be helpful to a modern city. Vancouver, we've been debating a gondola up to the top of Burnaby Mountain for how many years now? Medellin just did it. It's remarkable how fast Latin American cities are willing to take a good idea, find the investment very quickly for it because it's not much money in the grand scheme of things, and they build it, and they build it fast.
We saw hairdresser Olga Garcia at work in her tiny shop and popped in for a visit.
Lo digo también por mi negocio, que acá pues ya vienen y visitan mucho los turistas.
She told us she just won the equivalent of a $15,000 award from the local government, so she'll be expanding. The gondolas, she says, have brought in more customers and brought more wealth to her neighborhood.
Truth is, every city has urgent needs, but we're not treating them with a level of desperation that can lead us towards creative solutions. Whereas cities like Medellin, they had reached a point where the desperation spurred them into action.
In Medellin, we found a city infused with a sense of purpose. We met community activists trying to reclaim busy roads for pedestrians, and others trying to create serene urban hangouts in the downtown core. In other words, trying to make the city better for people, not their automobiles.
No city is ever just there, because no city is finished. Cities are constantly being designed and redesigned and redesigned and redesigned. So it's not easy, and the poorer job you do initially, the harder it can be to retrofit. So what I often say to cities is, for God's sakes, let's start designing the new things we're doing better.
In Canada, the good news is that some of the city fixes have started in spite of overwhelming challenges. We'll have that part of the story when we come back.
So we're on South Cambie Street in Vancouver, and we're standing in front of a mixed-use development. And it's quite emblematic of the good that can happen when we consider the complexity in cities, when we bring complexity into city design.
Happy City author Charles Montgomery says suburbs could look like this with smart planning. There are big box stores here, but unlike on the fringe, they've been stacked on top of each other. There are condos above them, and people-friendly coffee shops and stores at ground level.
So the secret ingredient to well-being in cities is sociability. It's other people. If you look at this landscape, you see people moving fairly slowly. We know on a block like this, people are more likely to stop, to chat, even to stop and make a phone call. They'll walk more slowly. And all of those things add up to a place that is safer, more social.
The new leadership in Canada's largest and arguably fastest moving city, Toronto, seems to have learned this too. One of the first things Mayor John Tory did was announce plans to narrow some of Toronto's busiest streets.
The wider you make your streets, the more dangerous they become. Why is that? It's because as humans, we respond to our environment. When we see a wide street, we drive faster regardless of what the speed limit is.
In Vancouver, slowing down cars and making them share the commuting space with bicycles has been responsible for triggering what at times seems like a war between those on two wheels and those on four.
Look, what we need in our cities is more freedom. And that includes freedom to move any way you wish. So if cities don't provide a minimum grid of safe, separated bike lanes, people will not have the freedom to bike in their cities.
The evidence is already in. When people have options other than driving, they'll use them. It remains a challenge, though, to retrofit areas that were built simply for housing, not as communities.
So we're in the Thorncliffe Park area of Toronto. You know, you can see many residential buildings here, but not necessarily a lot of amenities around.
The buildings may be eyesores, but Dr. Karen Lee says a city decision to rewrite local zoning laws may help with a reboot of the area.
Some of the buildings also have, main floor areas that might have common amenities, and those spaces might be used as well for retail or like cafes and healthy food stores.
Such talk of changing neighborhoods often leads to big political fights. But Charles Montgomery says, relax. Most suburbs will likely stay as they are. It's the new ones we're building now that can be done better.
Life can be better in this house if there's just some place to walk to, some place to shop, some more freedom. So what that means is creating more dense, mixed-use nodes within the suburban landscape. There isn't room in Canada's central cities for the tens of millions of people who are coming. There just isn't. So how can we provide more richness, more freedom, more social opportunity, even here on the edge?
Other cities in other countries, places like Medellin, are proving you can make dramatic changes that improve people's quality of life without spending huge amounts of money. Medellin still has problems: congestion, gangs, and poverty. But the transformation already has been striking. And though the big concern was urban violence, not sprawl, the remedies are strikingly similar to what's being proposed now for Canada's cities: create more sociable spaces and change how we get around.
I think every city has its moments of arrogance, and the arrogance can be quantified in what I call the 8 most frustrating words in the English language. We could never do that in our city.
In Canada, the job of fixing our cities has started, but it can be done better and faster. Chris Brown, CBC News, in Medellin, Colombia.